All right. Oh, nuts. What's happening with this door? Oh, I'm pulling the power cable. All right. Hello, everybody. Okay. Welcome to the November Rust Gamedev Meetup. It's been a while because last month, I think I was just really busy last month, so I didn't put stuff together in time. But this month we got a pretty good meetup, pretty small. And so if anybody in the audience has something you want to show off, please do feel free to send me a message on Discord and I can get you on the stage. What we'll be doing this month is taking a look at, I think I'll probably show off some Valoran stuff. We have Kevin to talk about Graphite. I'll also be showing off a pretty cool project I worked on for Halloween. So let's get started with this. I'm like wildly unprepared today. I have like just a few tabs with no presentation going. All right. Oh, also I'm like sickish, and so it is what it is. Okay, so first of all, I did want to mention we do have the newsletter for October just released yesterday, actually. And so if you want to go check out what's been going on, there's quite a lot of really cool stuff. I know the game development in Rust Discord has like a projects forum, which is pretty cool now. Lots of new game improvements and changes and everything like this. So definitely go take a look at what has been going on. So what I'll start off by showing off is a project I've been working on for Halloween, or I worked on for Halloween. I don't have like a nice blog write up about it just yet. Wait, if I okay, we kind of just like, oh yeah, that's fine. Video quality is not amazing. So essentially, my friends and I, we put together this Halloween display with a Raspberry Pi. We hooked it up to like some lights and some projectors. And so it's more on the embedded side, but there is a little bit of graphics-esque stuff. So we'll see here on like the garage, we have like these lasers going on, and so like they can move around and do some stuff, and then they can move pretty quickly. And so we'll see in a second, it'll make some patterns that we'll be able to distinguish. Now, when you're recording with a camera, it's not the easiest to record because like the frame rate of the camera will be faster than the light, whereas our eyes can see it like project properly onto the screen. So this is a really cool project that we put together for Halloween. And every time I do like a project like this, it just reminds me how much like there's like a few functions that have to do with like embedded stuff, and everything else is just like normal Rust, and it's super cool. So the code that I wrote, essentially, we had it taken a file that sort of represents a song, and then you'd be able to go through this song file, and then at like 1,000 milliseconds into the song, turn these lights on, play this on the projector kind of thing. And so I took that file in and then sent it over to the projectors and to the audio and everything like that. So a lot of fun. I did one for Christmas as well. I might have showed it off here, but I'll just like put up for reference. The Christmas one was pretty cool because I could get more people to write their own, like what I called renderers. So essentially, we had Zester from the Valoran project come draw Mario on the tree. And so I was hoping that I could get some students to work on some stuff for this Halloween project, but there wasn't too much on the coding side for procedural generation that I got running in time. Yeah, so that was a pretty cool project, just a little thing I wanted to show off. And going forward, I definitely hope to like sort of expand out this base that I have for like these sort of like controllers, and be able to maybe generalize some of like the way that the show files play and stuff like that, so other people could do cool stuff on their Raspberry Pis too. Okay, so that was something I'm working on. I'm going to, well, so Kevin, I know Kevin can hear me. Kevin, if you're ready, send me a message on Discord. If you're not ready just yet, I'll do my Valoran section. I'll let you choose if you want to go first, or let me continue on a little bit. All right, perfect. So I'll do Valoran right now, I think. So let me just switch over. I can like hear how congested my nose sounds, and so I imagine it's not so great for everybody else. Okay, so with Valoran, we've had quite a lot going on. Now, one thing I will mention is our blog posts have been a little bit, quite behind, like 2 months behind at this point, because I've had like a lot going on. Oh, wait, I wanted to show something else first. I was going to pull up Twitter, but I'm going to navigate to my Twitter first. So, okay, here. Yes, this Firefox. Okay, cool. So I was at GitHub Universe this week, and so this is like the big conference that GitHub has every year to announce like their big products and updates and all of this kind of like release information on pretty cool stuff. So since I'm a campus expert, I had the opportunity to actually do a panel on the main stage about code spaces in education. And it's not directly related to Rust, but I was talking in my talk a little bit about how I teach Rust to students at my university, and how this will make code spaces will make it easier. But the really cool thing is that so myself and Syed, the other student here, we were the first students to ever be on the main stage of GitHub Universe, and so that was like a really big honor. Very cool, very cool. And I don't know. Okay, I think that's why I wanted to say it mostly, just because like it was like a cool student thing, but I guess not too Rust related. But that was the other update I meant to say before. Oh yes, and so sorry, I was trying to explain why I've been so busy, and so I've been preparing a lot for this talk. I've been preparing for a lot of trips and stuff. So we don't have a lot, like a backlog of Valorant dev blogs that we need to work through, and so we're gonna hopefully be catching up on those pretty soon. But anyways, I wanted to mention that for Halloween, a lot of work went into making a pretty cool event for it. Now, I don't have the entire changelog with me, and the way that we set it up is that events in Valorant last for like a certain amount of time. So, for example, the Halloween event started like a week before Halloween, and then probably ended a little bit after. So I don't think it will load anything in for me for Halloween related stuff. But we'll just take a quick look around. Oops. Okay. Debug. I'm just gonna turn off music for now. Debug column spawn. Oh no, I don't remember. Okay, whatever. People just run around as normal. All right, I'm not gonna try to move too much because I know that the frame rate on StreamYard is not going to capture it to its to full extent. And I'm just trying to check quickly and see if there's anything from Halloween that might still be in. All right, what I might do is I'll probably pass it over to Kevin here to go over Graphite, and then I'm gonna check in with like the Valorant devs and see if I can quickly change stuff back to Halloween so that we can see what has been going on with that. So we'll be back in just a second. I'm gonna pass it over to Kevin, who's going to talk about Graphite. All right, so I'll hand it off to you to tell us about what has been going on in the last 2 months with Graphite. I imagine there's quite a lot that's happened.
Yes, it has been. All right. So we started out by the last 2 months have been combined into Sprint 19 because we typically combine we typically combine October into a 2-month sprint. So at least we did in the last 2 years. So just quickly going over what is Graphite first, if you are just tuning in for the first time. Graphite is aiming to be a node-based 2D graphics editor for both raster and vector graphics. And the idea is that it's going to be procedural and non-destructive. So the entire workflow is going to be somewhat similar to what you might be used to right now if you're using either open source tools like GIMP or Inkscape, or if you're using commercial tools like Affinity Designer or the Adobe products. Except the idea is that it's going to be open source, and it's also non-destructive to the core. So every single thing you can possibly do will end up being non-destructive. And we're just about at that phase now where we switch over from some of the destructive things that we did as the minimum viable product and switching over to being all node-based and all non-destructive. So here is just a quick overview of the UI as it's been for a while. And actually one of our things that we're showing off is a small little tweak to the UI, sort of a refresh that changes the way that we got rid of the accent color, that blue color. I'm just going to flip back and forth a few times. And we also redesigned some of the widgets, such as the number input and the checkbox. So things now look clearer and a little bit less confusing for people, especially those checkboxes before they actually had a check inside of them because we wanted to show that that's their icon, but turns out that was confusing. So we have improved that now. We have quite a lot coming in this past 2 months. Starting out with the eyedropper tool, which now is able to sample colors not from the shape that you click on, but from the actual pixel that your mouse is over in the canvas. And we have a much more sophisticated color picker that allows you to provide the hue saturation value, the hex code, the RGB values, and swap between an old color and a new color. And also we have multi-gradient stops, so that means if you create a gradient, you can actually go and adjust that and change the angles, change the distances between things, and choose the exact color you want. So I'm going to switch over and show what that looks like now. So we can go to editor.graphite.rs, and you can also follow along. This will be an overview of something from that kind of thing will be shown soon. That'll be the Imaginate tool. But starting out, we can first of all create colors. So we'll go ahead and create the gradient tool. So that is here. Pick a color. And now we can actually pick between, for example, I could go with the hex code FF00FF, and that'll be this pink color. And I can also now choose my secondary color, and this will be like, probably like this green. And maybe I'll set the alpha down to less than fully transparent. And now I can go ahead and drag and create this. And oh, actually that might be a bug where setting the alpha makes it disappear. Interesting. Oh, I know why. That's setting it to 1%. I've got to fix that. But if I go ahead and create this gradient, and then maybe change the transparency, and now I can go ahead and click this plus button, and it creates another gradient that's the halfway point at 50%, and also the intermediate color. And now I can change that if I want. I can also go and add another at 25%. And now I can also go and drag these, and also move the gradient around, and change these, oops, I clicked a new spot instead of in the middle. But I can go ahead and just drag these around and change these percentages, which update here. I can also click to invert the entire thing. And I can also change it to a radial gradient. We had that before, but it's a lot more useful now. And finally, you can switch it to a solid color, and that just uses the top color. And I can also switch it to a gradient, and that switches it to the color that you already had and the opposite of that color. So yeah, that is a useful feature, and as well as being able to now set the actual hex codes. You can copy and paste the hex codes between different places. That makes it really useful. And then we have the eyedropper tool. So previously this was not capable of doing that much, but now it actually has this widget that hovers over things, and it zooms in to the exact pixels that you can see here. So this is a zoomed in view, and I can pick this exact color. And that inner ring shows you the color that you're choosing. The outer ring shows you your primary and secondary colors. So as long as maybe I'll go ahead and release here and pick that lime color, and now it updates this primary color. And now you can see that the upper half of the ring is that new selection, and the lower half of the ring is the old also the old primary color. So now it's white, and then the secondary color is green. I can also right-click and now select maybe this purple color into the secondary. So if you right-click, you get the secondary color, and if you left-click, you get the primary color. So now we have in the secondary color slot the updated purple. And this also works with, basically, if I zoom out, for example, you can see how it actually influences the pixels a lot more. So all of those basically show the zoomed in view, and then that circle, the square in the middle shows you exactly which pixel you're selecting. That was a lot of work, and we finally got that built, so that is a good step. Next we have the design refresh. So I showed that on the previous page, and that's also implemented. So you could see that, for example, when we go ahead and create a new document, the checkbox here does not look like it is checked when it's not checked. But now if I click on it, it actually looks like it's checked. Additionally, we have a slider, so you can drag back and forth, and it'll update the opacity. We have that in a number of places now. You can also change the rotation by dragging from -180 to 180. And that also allows you just to click in the middle and type like 0 or type 45, but you can also drag between, and that makes it really convenient. So that's one of the new widgets that we have, together with that design refresh where we designed that widget. We have a number of front-end cleanup and UX fixes. Those are partially the redesign and partially a number of changes to the code that have improved the overall front-end code base. Our front-end code base is written in Vue.js because Rust's ecosystem is not the best for native GUI support that also includes web support. But in the future, we will be moving towards a Rust-based GUI as long as it still is able to compile to something that runs in the web, because we want to have both a web app as well as a desktop app in the future. Although currently, for ease of development reasons, we're just doing a web app at the moment. And then also we have some pen tool improvements. So something you can do now is you can make shapes with a pen tool, and you simply double-click, and that creates a sharp shape, and you double-click again, and it gives you these handles back. So that makes it much more easy to properly design any shape you want, basically. You just double-click, and you can even do it here, for example. Double-click on this, and now you can turn your rectangle into some more of an interesting shape. That is all the main updates for this group. And then finally we have some fixes for Safari. Previously it was broken on Safari because Apple apparently really doesn't like supporting standard web features, even though it's 2022 and those features have existed for 10 years. So we went through and methodically fixed all of those by finding workarounds. And also we have some crash fixes, some performance fixes, and some bug fixes, many sprinkled in throughout the thing. So now the really exciting part is to talk about the Imaginate feature. So this is an integration of Stable Diffusion, which you might have heard of perhaps DALL-E. DALL-E, or DALL-E 2, is a proprietary implementation of this new diffusion-based image synthesis technology that is coming out of machine learning research. And essentially we have integrated this into Graphite as basically a frame. So you drag a rectangle and create a frame, and then it acts as a non-destructive adjustment layer to make interesting artwork. So let's go back over and give this a try. So I'm going to create a new infinite document because it's more useful to be an infinite document. And now I will connect up here and just draw this frame. So this is powered by the Stable Diffusion server that's running on my computer. I have an NVIDIA graphics card with at least 8 gigabytes of VRAM, which is necessary to run this, which is unfortunately the reason that we have not been able to deploy this to a larger number of people, because it does have to run on an individual graphics card and only one person can use it at any time. But we do want to figure out how to distribute this to more people as soon as possible. I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end, but at the moment it's running on localhost port 7860, and you can see it's connected to the server. So I'm going to start out by giving a prompt, and I'm going to say, I guess in the spirit of Rust, we're going to have a crab on a beach, standing on a rusty boat. Let's try that. So I click on the button to generate, and within about half a second or maybe 2 seconds or something, We have a crab, I guess, on a beach. And we can perhaps change it, so instead of a beach, we'll just say crab standing on a rusty boat, so that way it doesn't try and generate what looks like sand. So you sometimes have to change the prompts a little bit, but you do end up with something. This, I guess it kind of ignored the boat, but you can keep generating new ones. There we go, I guess that's the deck of a boat. And we can now, let's go and look for Ferris the crab. And let's grab an SVG and bring this into Graphite. So I want to show you now what you can do if I really want this boat. So I'm going to actually generate now another image of a boat. So I'm going to change this to deck of a boat. Let's say of a tugboat. I'm going to say close up. Not quite what we're looking for, but let's just keep changing the seed and generating new ones. I'll maybe say like metal deck of a boat, perhaps. Keep trying a few more. And then I'm going to put Ferris on top of that, and then we're going to generate the combined result. I guess I'll get rid of close up, it's too close up. There we go, this is going to look good. So now we're going to take Ferris and we're going to put it on top, but okay, it does look like the colors are a little bit problematic, so I'm going to put a rectangle over and just use a blend mode to sort of recolor this thing. I'm going to use the overlay blend mode, and now I can just sort of change the color of this overall image so it has a little more contrast with Ferris. There's Ferris on top, and let's pick some kind of blend mode that gives us some contrast. Maybe I'll pick a different blend mode. Let's try hue. There we go. That might be okay. And let's see, yeah, okay. So now I'm going to take this Imaginate layer. Actually, I'm going to scale everything up because this is a little bit small. So I can basically just go and let's just put the whole thing in a group and then scale the entire thing up a bit. And now let's make another Imaginate layer. You create this rectangle frame, put it over the top of it. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say use base image. And that's going to take whatever's underneath it and then make some modifications. So now we're going to say cartoon crab standing on the deck of a boat. And we're going to see how it changes things. So we might have to adjust these parameters here, but let's give it a try first of all. Ah, interesting. So that's one option. We can tell it to be a little less creative with the image. So basically take fewer artistic liberties from the base image. There we are. Now it looks a little bit more like Ferris, although it's certainly going to change things. And we could also tell it to be a little more literal with the text if we wanted. So this is going to basically produce a more literal result, although it's going to be a little bit less expressive. So it's taking that text prompt as we described it here and doing that. We can also change the samplers. Like I found that this one typically produces like a more artistic result, although it takes longer to generate. That's kind of funny. And now, as you can see, what you could also do is you could generate things and then basically trace them and then make changes yourself. So for example, I did this for Halloween. I drew a bat, and I'm just going to try drawing a bat right now. I don't know, that might look more like a ghost than a bat, but we'll go with it. And I'm just going to give this a fill color, or let's change the outline color to like, I don't know, red or something, or brownish, and then we'll give it a fill color. The fill color can be maybe a gray color, I guess. And let's give it a much wider fill, let's say like 30 wide. And rotate the whole thing a little bit. And let's maybe, yeah, okay. So now let's drag the Imaginate layer around it. And in this case, we are going to maybe shrink everything down so it generates a little bit faster because it takes longer based upon the resolution. And we're going to say gray Halloween bat flying. And we're going to check this use base image. And it's going to hopefully make something that looks decent. Ah, there we go. Now that might not be exactly what we want, but we can now make changes to it using this non-destructive process. So what we already have here is, as a layer, we can always go regenerate. If I don't hit the dice icon, it doesn't change the seed, so it'll actually make the exact same result again. And that's what makes this not destructive. As long as you leave your layers the same, you can go duplicate the layers and make changes to them. And let's say, for example, let's see, what do I want to make as a change? Well, actually, one thing we can do is we can just duplicate the layer right now and just generate again. So it's going to read what's ever underneath. So it's going to look at this image underneath, and then it's going to generate the top one again. So we basically just get to take what exists and make additional levels of changes. So actually, that's kind of interesting. Let's say I don't like this little balloon thing in the middle. So I'm just going to take the ellipse tool and create something of this general shape. Use the eyedropper tool to pick this color. And then use the fill tool to fill that in so it's covering up whatever this weird thing is. And maybe I can now say I want to draw in the remainder of these lines. So I will use the fill tool again, use the eyedropper tool again to pick the color I want. Let's say I want this color, so I'll take that hex code and paste it in over here. And then, yeah, that's about right. I can maybe change this to like 3 wide instead of 5 wide. And maybe one more shape here just to link them together. And maybe like also a line down the middle or something. And now I can basically, I make these changes and I can duplicate the Imaginate layer again, put it on top, and I can make changes to the prompt or to the settings if I want. Maybe I'll say it should be a little bit less creative with the image now, so it'll take fewer artistic liberties from what it's seeing, and it's now going to make additional changes as we like them. So in this case, it kind of did something weird in the middle, so let's just try a different version. Oh, actually, that's interesting. It gave it like a little bat bow tie. That's kind of cute. Yeah, I like that. So you do pretty quickly end up with something like this that you get some inspiration from. So now what we could do is, of course, we could put in a few more minutes to kind of trace this and make changes as we want. But it's a really fast way to iterate quickly, get a lot of different variations. You can just duplicate the layer and, let's say we like this one, but maybe we want to see what else it can do. So we just duplicate this layer, hide that one, and then just roll the dice again and see what else it can do. And pretty quickly you can end up with a large variety of different things, different designs. And of course, this is only just like artistic inspiration, but you can also use it for lots of other purposes. For example, if you're generating textures in a game, you might just generate a 512 by 512 image. So in this case, you simply resize it to about 512 by 512, and then it's going to round it to the nearest 64 by 64. You can also click this button, and it's going to change the scale to be exactly 512 by 512. So it took whatever it rounded to 64 by 64 and updates it. There you go. Just like that. So now we'll say like the color, or we'll say like, how about a castle wall texture? And then as we just go down to the bottom, say tiling, and this is going to make it so it actually has to tile the shape, or it has to tile the generation now. So now you have, in a matter of seconds, a tile like this. We can also go ahead and say like wall graffiti.
That tiling is insane. Like for game development, there's like so many practical purposes for this where you could just like very easily create something that can go on any texture in the game.
Yes, exactly. And now let's turn off, for tiling, let's turn off the graffiti, for graffiti, let's turn off the tiling. And we end up with something like this. And maybe we don't want that little bottom part, but let's actually just put it below so it crops it out. And now we'll change the overlay, change the blend mode to maybe overlay or maybe screen. How about multiply? I mean, yeah, there we are. So let's ignore that part that's coming out the bottom. Actually, I'll just for our own purposes, draw a little white rectangle over it. And I think it goes... Oh, snapping system still needs a little bit of improvement, but there we are. Just covering it up so we don't get confused. Now we're going to take that original Imaginate layer that generated the wall, the brick wall, and now we'll just put that on top. Now we'll say use base image, and we're going to say with graffiti. If I could spell it. There we are. And yeah, we have use base image, and we're still going to check use tiling because we still want to make sure that the result that it changes at the end is going to still use graffiti. And we'll give it a lot of artistic freedom. And also the reason you're currently seeing the brick wall is because I duplicated the layer, and the layer has the generated image. So all I have to do is hit clear, and now we're acting like this layer here is a frame without the image occupying the frame. So as long as you hit clear, then you're able to see what's underneath it, and it samples whatever is underneath it. So now we can go ahead and click Imaginate. And we end up with something like that, but let's say we want it to be a little more literal to the original image, or a little less creative with the image that it changes. So now you end up with something like that, which may or may not be part of your art style. You could also say like cartoony, cell shading, if you want that to be part of your graphic style. And there you are. Now you end up with something a little bit perhaps more aligned with your art style. Or you can instead, we can duplicate that layer, hide it, and try another version. And this time we'll say photorealistic 4K, and then we'll say like, yeah. That time it actually didn't look very photorealistic, but we can try again. And of course, we can also give it more samples. So I've been pretty quick just for the purpose of the demo, but you could also go up to a higher sample rate, and this just gives it more steps to make further improvements. And then you can use different sampling methods, and it will take a little longer, but also sometimes give you different styles of results because different samplers basically use a slightly different algorithm to be better or worse at certain styles. So in this case, I think this one's good at artistic sorts of things, so this sampler is trying to do something that looks somewhat artsy. But yeah, basically this gives you an idea of lots of different things that you can do. Oh, you can also do like different particle effects. So you could basically do like a let's say magic or mask of let's say grayscale mask of magic particles, and we'll see what it does here. Not the kind of mask I was thinking of. We want grayscale stencil of, we'll see if that can do it. But you can basically use this sort of thing for game dev to make basically particle effects that you can use in your particles to make like magic symbols and stuff. We'll just say like runes. We'll see if that does it. Ah, there you go. Interesting. So you could take one of these 9 and just start tweaking it further. So let's maybe duplicate this, scale it up a bunch, and then just take a new Imaginate layer and go over, I don't know, this one, and maybe scale them both up a little bit because it does work best at 512 by 512 because the AI was trained on that resolution. But it does work at other resolutions as well, as we saw, for example, with the boat and with Bat. And now we do have the chance to say use base image, and we can now say magic rune particle effect texture. So we have that. Let's just go again with it, and we'll say maybe gradient. Oh, I misspelled particle, so that probably didn't help it. There we are. So now we have some interesting wisps and stuff. And of course, if we don't want those to be colorful, we can always just tell it color in the negative prompt, and that makes it so it tries to ignore or tries to avoid that aspect. Sometimes it doesn't always work, so we do have some color still. But we can now say maybe grayscale, black and white, and see if that can make some further changes to avoid color. Of course, we can always just desaturate it at the end if we like the look. But okay, so now this is kind of looking cool. Maybe just do another generation again, so you just duplicate the layer and keep trying, see where it brings us. Maybe I don't like that one, so I'll just try regenerating. That's kind of cool. So I could imagine this sort of thing looking, being used in a particle effect that might kind of spin on the ground underneath your character or something like that if they're casting a spell. And basically all you need to do here is duplicate this image. Let's just paste it over here. And actually you don't even have to duplicate it. I'm just going to select it, and then I go to File, Export, and then I'm going to say it's the selection. So it's just this one selected layer. And now I can say rune texture, and I'll hit export, and I can open it up here and use this. It's a 512 by 512 texture. Maybe you might want to clean it up or something, remove this little weird X or something. You could do that perhaps in Graphite, or you can perhaps do it in other software to just sort of like give yourself a perfectly black background around the outsides if that's an issue with the way that it's looking. But this is most likely already a game production ready asset that you can use. So that is all compliments of Stable Diffusion, this amazing technology, and its implementation with the Imaginate tool in Graphite. So finally, we have
sorry,
one
before you
last
go on, can I ask you a few questions
Sure.
about that? Just because
Yeah,
there's that was an insane section. Like I did not expect this at all. So I've been seeing in the chat a lot of people have been mentioning like how it's like such like an awesome productivity tool for a lot of stuff they do, or they'd love to try it out. You mentioned that currently it's only running on one GPU, so it's like one user per GPU, and you have to find time sharing. Is it possible for someone to be able to, if they have a powerful GPU at home, run it themselves?
Yes, so that was actually, thanks for reminding me, I was going to mention that in these bullet points here. So at the moment, we're going to be posting a blog post, hopefully later today or maybe tomorrow, describing actually how you can self-host this. We sort of were busy building the feature and not doing the marketing aspect of providing you a description of how to use it or documentation or anything like that. And also this space is changing so quickly with all the technology that's actually growing in the Stable Diffusion world that every single day the API surface is changing, and we have to keep making changes to modify that and keep it up to date. But we'll make a blog post and hopefully keep that up to date, describing how to do this. So stay tuned. Take a look at the website maybe tomorrow, and you can see how to host it yourself. It does require an NVIDIA GPU because it needs to have CUDA, and it needs, I think, at least 8 gigabytes. Maybe 6 would work, but probably 4 is too little. It's resolution dependent, so if you're only doing 512 by 512, you can probably get away with 6, I think. But if you want to do anything larger than 512 by 512, my GPU is 8 gigabytes, and it pretty much caps out at about 1 megapixel, so that's around like 800 by 800 or something, or maybe 1000 by 1000 if I'm lucky on a good day. If my GPU isn't loaded down with any other tasks or anything, it can usually manage to do 1000 by 1000, so 1 megapixel. But anyways, yeah, stay tuned for a blog post describing how to set it up. It's actually relatively easy, but you do have to download some software, and then you host it on localhost. But also, if anyone here in the attendance has some experience with cloud infrastructure like Docker or load balancing, spinning up and down servers, kind of just maybe even just writing a new Rust code base, so you don't have to learn our existing code base, but just write something that can check the status of different servers, scale up or down servers that are needed. And potentially in the future, we might be able to provide the option where people can either donate to the project, so that gives us a little bit of funding to work with, and then we can use that funding to rent servers, perhaps on AWS or perhaps on some other cloud hosting services that can provide capable GPUs. Then we can then provide this to more people. So basically, if you're interested in helping out to provide this really amazing technology to a larger audience, so it doesn't have to be kind of just stuck on my own computer, then please get in touch, join our Discord server, and see if you can help out with infrastructure-related things, because we're busy building Rust code for the front end and for the back end, and we have less experience with infrastructure stuff. Are there any other questions on this topic before quickly previewing the node system?
I don't think so too much. I'm going to go look back at this video and try to like replicate a lot of it myself. And so I think maybe in the future also like seeing like a video tutorial on how you can like take these steps in a process, because you walked through like what could be like a 5-minute cycle to make an asset for a game jam, which is absolutely insane compared to like a lot of other stuff I've seen. And so I think like the most
very true.
I've seen Midjourney before. I've seen a lot of this stuff, but when you generated those runes, I'm like that's amazing. That's like something that I would expect out of like a AAA game type of thing.
Yeah, and I've actually got a friend who's on our team, and he's been using it for actual game production work, creating textures, creating like one. Actually, I'm going to give a really quick example of. I'm just going to look for like a bloody font, because he was using it to make basically a like kind of a demonic texture of text.
Okay.
In like an underworld environment, and here we are. I don't know. This doesn't look that bloody, but we're just gonna say souls for sale. I don't know.
I love it.
And I'm gonna give it a color. I don't know why I had a white color. That was why. So let's give it red. At least that'll look bloody. That doesn't look very bloody, but we will tell it to be bloody.
Perfect.
So it doesn't understand text very well, but these are probably sufficient. So let's give it at least enough resolution to work with. We probably want to be like, maybe, we always want to be at least 512 in either dimension, but we can go wider. Because otherwise it looks weird when things are smaller. It doesn't really do a good job when it's smaller than that. But I'll just say, okay, so now I take that, say use base image, and I'm going to say text souls for sale, give that the name in quotes, in blood, or written in blood. And we'll see what it does. Sometimes it can distort the text to be unreadable, like for eel is not a word, but we can give it another seed. That one kind of screwed it up as well, but keep rolling the dice and you might be able to get it to do something. You can also reduce the creativity. Give it a little less opportunity to be creative. And I'll say like
it is doing some pretty cool things to the font though. Like effectively this could be a way to generate new fonts in general.
Absolutely, because you definitely would probably want to go clean it up if you're going to use it for anything vector based. But for quick textures you might use in a game, I'm going to say like dripping blood. And I could also help it out a little bit by kind of just adding a blood drop. Where did that go? Not sure where that went. Whatever. And, because it was white. That's why. I need to change my color to red. So just give it like a little blood drop. Like that. Maybe a couple of them. And then as long as you put Imaginate above all the layers, then it will be able to generate with that. There we are. Now it looks kind of like blood.
Wow. Yeah.
Maybe just give it another chance to take that existing image and bring it further. That's interesting.
Oh, this is so cool.
So yeah, pretty quickly you could stick that on a wall or something, or yeah, and use that pretty much for game production ready assets.
Yeah, yeah. And I also really liked how you could like cut out a part of your entire canvas and export that directly, and so you don't have to worry too much about like cropping your canvas to a certain size and exporting.
Yeah, because what you can always do is you could actually take the Imaginate tool, do something like this, and tell it to do 0 samples. So go 0 samples. What that's going to do is it's going to render the canvas, but actually not do... Oh, wait. Never mind. I guess maybe you do need some samples. Let's go with 1 sample, but let's go with... Oh, sorry. That was because I forgot to use base image. Yeah, 0 samples, use base image.
Okay.
And that will render the canvas, and then you can just, as long as you have it selected, go to selection, and that will take whatever it rendered and just export that exact region.
Nice. Super cool.
Yeah. Okay. So any other questions from the audience before I really quickly preview the last teaser
Nope,
for
I think
nodes?
we're good.
Okay, so very final thing. We've been very busy this past 2 months. We do have the almost fully working minimum viable product for the node system. And this is the node system that will eventually replace all the layers that you're seeing. Everything that you're seeing here will still have a layer panel, but you're going to be basically seeing a tree representation of the nodes. But we can also go and use the technology we had for the Imaginate layer, where it renders what's underneath it and makes changes, except instead of sending it to a stable diffusion server, it will basically allow you to drag this and then say generate. Actually, sorry, I need to be on a different branch at this point. I need to be on my local branch. And actually, I had some cool octopus art that I was doing in Stable Diffusion earlier with the Imaginate tool, and I'll just quickly show off what that was. So it started out like this thing, and I basically said, oh, that looks kind of like an octopus. Let's just tell it to make it look more like an octopus. And I just gave it this prompt here, graffiti art of an orange and purple octopus. And I just gave it a couple iterations and turned it from that into that, which is kind of cool. And I could definitely go further with it, make some actual manual changes by drawing shapes over it, that kind of thing. But let's make a new layer real quick, a new document real quick. And I don't know, let's actually go copy the octopus in here, because he looks kind of cool. And now I will go and draw a frame for the node graph tool. So at the moment, the node graph is raster-based, or bitmap-based, basically. It's working with textures in the same way that the Imaginate tool is. But in the future, it's going to be also vector-based. So all of your actual shapes are going to be part of the node system. But I basically just go and hit render. And right now, we end up with this. So I'm going to say open node graph. And what you can see here is we have the input. We don't actually visualize the input at the moment, but it goes into the hue shift color node, then it goes into the brighten color, and then it goes and actually technically these two are lambdas, so it's taking a color, it's reading a color, so a single color, not the whole texture, but just a color, which gives it a hue shift, and you can see that the shift in degrees here is minus 50. Then it goes, and I just changed it to minus 180, then it goes into a brighten color, and it brightens it by 10. And let's maybe make that brighten it by negative 50 instead. I don't know, we'll see if that's crazy. But then basically that is a mapping one color to another color, then it's mapping that color to another color, then it's taking this combination of things and it's actually acting as a lambda, feeding that lambda into the map node, and it's taking that ability to map one color to another, and it's doing it to every pixel in the image. So now if I go ahead and hit render, now we have our new hue and our new brightness. So we're darker and we are a different hue. So I can also go and say, like, I don't know, let's change the hue again to like maybe 180. So this is going to be like pretty much the exact opposite hue. So if I go ahead and hit render, now we have pretty much the opposite hue. We do have some additional nodes and things, but at the moment it will crash if I actually try and use them because this is very bleeding edge as of like 30 minutes ago. But in the next couple days, we will have this properly implemented so you can actually drag around your own things. Like I think at the moment I can't do that. Yeah, because that would cause a crash, so we have that disabled. But we will have very soon the ability to do more than this hard-coded set of nodes. And pretty quickly, we're going to also be integrating the Imaginate tool. So instead of being its own layer, it's going to be actually part of the node system. So you can basically use it as its own tool, where it basically just makes the hard-coded node graph of just the Imaginate tool, but also it will include the ability to change the hue and brighten it and everything in the same node graph. And you can basically go and take the existing Imaginate tool, add additional nodes, or you can do that in a different layer on top of that, basically. So you have more control over the non-destructive editing, and you get a bit more procedural aspects to your overall design. So essentially this will take the idea of procedural generation, but in the future, like relatively soon, we'll be able to say, taking a string as your data type and feeding that into the Imaginate tool, and you basically can just turn a string into an image. And then you could, I don't know, we have a regex node in the future where you can actually do like changes to your string, make, you know, arbitrary changes, maybe read it from a CSV file or something. And let's say you're building a card game, and you want to have artwork for all your cards, but you also want to have like the abilities, the spells, the you know, different stats for your card, the description, a little bit of lore on the character or the ability. And you might just make a spreadsheet with all the different text information based on how you're designing the game. And all you have to do then is build sort of a procedural graph here that will use the Imaginate tool with Stable Diffusion to generate the artwork for the card, and then we'll also fill in the text. It will fill in the description. It'll place the icons for you that describe like what level it is, what the different abilities are, what the different elementals are, different kinds of things you might expect in a trading card game or some kind of competitive card game. And it will basically allow you to quickly iterate. You just update your spreadsheet as soon as you want to make game design choices to the card game. This could, of course, be a digital card game or a physical card game. And it'll basically generate your entire card set by exporting all the images for you in the not too distant future. Hopefully in maybe a few months we can have most of those capabilities. So yes, that is the node system. Little preview for you. That will be coming online in a much more robust fashion over the next few days and the next few months, or next few weeks, definitely, and also in a much more robust fashion over the next few months. The idea is to replace all the layers, because currently we have this like destructive vector-based layer editing system. We're going to be building a vector data type in the node system, and then that will actually replace it, but we'll still have layers. So you'll basically have the node view, but they'll be visualized as a tree. But you also then have the ability to go to the node system and visualize it more as a directed acyclic graph. So you get the choice of going between layers and nodes, even though they represent the same data. And that way it's convenient that you have some small panel in the bottom right corner of your screen if you're trying to focus mostly on using the tools to build stuff. But if you want to work more in a procedural kind of node-based approach, you might have your primary view being the node graph, make all your non-destructive editing, all of your procedural editing there, and then just visualize the result in the viewport. So come write nodes with us. We now have the ability to write nodes. So come join our Discord server and get involved. It's a really good way to start contributing to the project, would be actually just starting to write some nodes, because that's a really easy way. You don't have to learn the rest of the code base yet. You can just start writing cool things. So also try it out in your browser. You can make cool art. Maybe put a few minutes into making some cool artwork like you would with any other vector editor, and then in the next day or two, once we have the instructions up on the blog for how to actually use the Imaginate tool, we'll probably give some instructions on how to make cool artwork with it, as well as just how to set it up. Then you can basically turn your cool artwork into something even cooler. So with that said, we look forward to speaking to you again next month and showing additional progress.
Awesome. Yeah, there's definitely a ton of exciting stuff. Just a few questions from chat. So one person asked, does it only run in the browser? And I think that's in terms of Graphite entirely.
Yeah, so the idea is at the moment we're stuck with the browser ecosystem because that's how we're doing our UI. But in the future, we want to always maintain browser support, but also we want to have a desktop version as well. And we're looking at a couple options. One is to use the Rust project called Tari, and that is basically a replacement for Electron that works based upon your based upon your operating system's web view instead of integrating a large copy of Chromium into the installation. So it's only like 5 megabytes or something, and takes up less of your system RAM because it's already using existing resources allocated to the web view that your operating system provides. And by using that, it's basically going to be a very lightweight equivalent to Electron, and we can provide that. And also it runs all your Rust code natively. So that way it's actually using the native compiled version instead of running inside of WebAssembly. Because at the moment we're running inside of WebAssembly for the browser. So it actually runs that Rust code separately from the browser part. But we basically just have to put together the infrastructure to have 2 different build environments where one builds to WebAssembly and the other builds to native Rust code that then interops with Tari. So it's probably going to be a few more months just because it's not that high priority at the moment. We're not really blocked by anything in the browser, and the browser actually provides really good performance. We've seen a number of people remark that they're very surprised that it doesn't feel like a sluggish web app. It actually feels like a native app. And that's just because I've been working on all the front-end aspect of things, and I care a lot about the performance. So that's a really big consideration when I do the software engineering part of designing the front end, is just making sure that it runs very smoothly with minimal overhead by not having like 40 divs inside of each other just to make a simple button. You just have like 2 divs, one for the text and one for the icon or something. Yeah.
Perfect. And then the other question, is it possible to change Stable Diffusion with any text-to-image model?
To change it with any...
Yeah, so I'm not sure I fully understood this as well. Maybe I'll ask if this question can be reposted, because I think Stable Diffusion with any text-to-image model.
Oh,
Because
I
I think
see.
this is a
Right, replacing Stable Diffusion with any other, but still using the Imaginate tool. So that's part of the reason we decided to call it Imaginate, is because we want to have it, we want to have our own kind of tool name, and then this stuff is developing so fast. This branch of research is developing so fast that 6 months from now, Stable Diffusion might not be that impressive compared to what exists from some other projects 6 months from now. So that's why we built it to be branded agnostic of the backing technology. We don't actually mention Stable Diffusion in the code or in the project or in the front end anywhere. So the idea is that we want to be able to swap it out in the future, to always maintain the cutting edge, to always stay with whatever is cutting edge.
Perfect. Yeah, so I guess like the at a point here, so yeah, browser, yeah, you're able to use browser only, but GPU is separate. So yeah, oh yeah, so basically, I guess you'd be running a server with the GPU that you'd be connecting to, right?
Yeah, like at the moment I am doing that. And actually, if it's kept to a manageable level, if anyone wants to hop in the Discord server and ask for a link, I can provide you basically my hosted copy through a tunnel at a URL. So you paste in a URL and replace that where it says localhost in the settings. Change that localhost to the URL that I give you, and as long as you're using it one at a time, or maybe two at a time, you hopefully aren't clashing with each other. Because if two people try and generate at the exact same time, then it breaks. That's the problem. But I'm happy to give out that URL to a small number of people, as long as it's not a large enough number of people that you're going to mutually step on each other. So hop in the Discord server, and I'm happy to give the URL to a limited number of people at a time, and I will also get the information up on how to host it yourself.
Awesome. So I think that's it for questions. So thank you so much, Kevin, for showing everything off. So yeah, I guess we'll see next month what you've been up to and where Graphite gets to.
Yeah, I can't wait to see where it goes next. It's so much stuff is right at the cutting edge of like being ready to be more mature and more useful at this point, especially the node system.
I'm definitely excited to see it for the global game jam this year. I can hopefully use some
that's
some
of
Graphite's generation. Yeah, that'd be really cool. End of January, I think. So just a little bit.
Cool.
All right.
Yeah, just enough time to be useful.
Perfect. Okay, so I think we'll actually end off the meetup here for today. I was going to show off some stuff with Valorant, but I wasn't able. Well, I loaded it in, and I'm not able to see the the exact event stuff just yet. So what I'll probably do is try to maybe do it in December, maybe do like a little bit of a bigger walkthrough. Yeah, but so that's it for today. I'm going to be trying to move us towards having like if you want to register for a little bit of show and tell, we're going to try doing it. I think as an issue somewhere on the working group, whether that's in discussions on the entire org or like an issue that I create each month that people can comment on. So expect to see that, and I'll try to put it out earlier so that we can get more people hopping on and showing off what kind of stuff that they're working on. Yeah, so without further ado, we'll end off here for today, and we'll see everybody next month.